Hello, my name is Mary Mack, and I'm the Executive Director of ACEDS, the Association of Certified eDiscovery Specialists, and we have our live webinar today, AI Techniques for Handling Regulatory Requests and Internal Investigations. With everything that's going on in the world and in the U.S., the regulatory requests landscape is changing, and we're going to be addressing techniques that have been helpful in the past to fulfill the various regulatory requests, be they from the U.S. or the EU. We have a fantastic couple of folks to talk about this. Kevin Clark, he's the Litigation Support Manager at Thompson & Knight. He's also the co-chair of the D.C. Bar Litigation Section Steering Committee. He's on the Masters Conference Advisory Board. He's on the board with me also of the LTPI. And Kevin is somebody who also is very technical. He's an RCA, a PMP, Six Sigma Green Belt, and of course a CEDS, and a certified Scrum Master. So he also has served as an advisory board member for Chicago Kent, his alma mater, and has provided pro bono representation for veterans at the U.S. Court of Appeals for claims. So I want to welcome Kevin.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And I'm glad to have you here. And then with Kevin, we also have Johannes Scholtes, also known affectionately as Jan. He's the Chairman and Chief Strategy Officer of my alma mater, ZyLAB. And before joining ZyLAB, Jan was a lieutenant in the intelligence department of the Royal Dutch Navy, which I think gave him a great background for some of the work that he's been doing. He also has a Master's of Science in Computer Science and a PhD in Computational Linguistics from the University of Amsterdam. Almost 10 years ago, he started as the Extraordinary Chair in Text Mining for the Department of Knowledge Engineering at the University of Maastricht. He's been working in this area a long time. I'm really looking forward to the discussion between you two about how we can apply AI techniques to have more successful outcomes and reduce costs in regulatory response, no matter where we are in the world. So I'll hand it over to you, Jan. We're absolutely delighted to have you, and thank you, ZyLAB, for sponsoring this wonderful webinar.
Thank you, Mary. And I'm also very happy to be here. I'm also very happy that Kevin is joining us today. So what are today's topics? Like Mary clearly explained, we're going to look at various tools from the field of artificial intelligence and data science and how we've seen them being used with our clients in truth-finding missions, in regulatory requests, and in related internal investigations. We're going to talk today about techniques like machine learning, clustering, information extraction, and how they can help us to increase the speed and improve the quality of the eDiscovery process, which is closely related to the finding the answers to the regulatory requests or the internal investigations. We're going to look at a couple of different techniques, is how we can use these techniques to organize the data along like typical investigation questions or dimensions. Like the who, the where, the when, the why, what, how much, which means. We're going to see how we can find things even if we don't know exactly what they look like or what keywords are used or how to write them. We're going to find what's missing, trying to find code words. We're going to look at documents and how they are actually how we can measure precision and recall in a very accurate way. And we're going to look at increasing our recall, boosting the recall actually, and how we can do that and how we can measure the accuracy of what percentage of relevant documents you actually found, which is very important if you have to kind of estimate if you have been complete in providing the answers to the regulatory agency asking for those questions. I'm taking it now to the next slide. Okay, there we go. So what are we talking about? Kevin, you are the specialist here, so I would like to give you the word.
Yeah, so what are we talking about? So regulatory requests are the #1 reason for eDiscovery worldwide. Here in the U.S., litigation is much larger, but worldwide regulatory requests are the #1 reason. So these requests are for information and documentation from regulatory bodies or external auditors, and often they're unannounced, and they can be very disruptive to business. Traditionally, 2 areas were focused on: competition and antitrust violations. But in recent years, that's expanded out into financial, bribery, fraud, environmental, healthcare, data privacy, consumer protection, food and drug, and many other regulatory fields. So it's definitely gotten a lot broader.
Yeah, and it's growing, and I think that this is initial list, but we see these things. Everything's being regulated. In Europe, there's a lot of funding in healthcare, so there's huge regulations around government-funded healthcare programs, and I presume that there's also in the U.S. probably a couple of other areas that we didn't even list here.
Yes, it is definitely growing. As government gets involved in more and more in what we do. They want to regulate, and if they're regulating, they want to investigate, they want to audit.
Yep.
So what can they do? Regulatory agencies set regulations, they perform inquiries, they perform investigations and audits, and they may find the relevant parties or order certain measures to be taken for companies and businesses that are not in compliance. In some cases, they also instruct organizations to perform internal investigations. Typically, these are independent investigations, or they instruct shareholders to replace current management. As a result, regulators, courts, and law enforcement authorities worldwide have developed a massive appetite for access to data held by corporations. They'll go in and request information, they'll dig through your data, and they'll do it under the guise of investigating some issue.
Yeah. What we see is that the number of fines, criminal fines, and other monetary assessments from just antitrust investigations has grown tremendously. I was only able to find the numbers until 2015, which we're showing here, but you can see that these are huge numbers. And if we look at in Europe, where antitrust investigations really are the main reason for eDiscovery, I think it's probably even up to 75% of all of the eDiscovery related investigations. The number of fines has also been tremendous, and then this is excluding of some of the fines that are recently being given to Google. This is just until 2016, and a small estimate for 2017. And again, these are just the cartel fines. If we look a little bit further down the line, and let me get in here a little bit, and if we look at just outside of the antitrust area, for instance, in the financial sector, what you can see here is a list of all the fines that have been paid by financial institutions to the regulators for a variety of non-compliance issues that they committed, from the LIBOR affair to the mortgage, the subprime affairs. And recently the EPA gained a lot of attention with the investigations towards Volkswagen, and of course that has also resulted in enormous fines, which on the one hand, of course, is Volkswagen should never have done what they did. But then, because of the attention of the EPA, every other car manufacturer in the world is suddenly also in the attention of these agencies, and a lot of companies that also supply these car manufacturers suddenly have to deal with all these antitrust investigations. Now, if we look at how these things go, there you go. So maybe Kevin, you can give us a little bit of light on what's involved in the answering of a regulatory request.
Right. So answering regulatory requests, your answers, you need to make sure that they are complete, they have to be accurate, and they have to be timely. Accidentally withholding and not providing information can lead to dawn raids, on-premise investigations, and even shareholders being replaced. Information obtained by regulators from your competition or whistleblowers can also lead to unexpected dawn raids and information seizures.
So, Kevin and Jan, do you see a difference between the willingness of regulators to go in and actually scoop up data from a corporation? Is that more prevalent in the EU or in the US? What's your sense of that? We'll go Kevin first.
So definitely more. I've seen more on the civil side. I think there's a lot more working with investigators, and maybe there's not the dawn raids. But definitely on the criminal side is the SEC maybe has the DOJ investigate. Maybe the FBI will get involved. I've definitely seen a lot more, raids on businesses. They'll come in and pull out computers. They'll pull all the files and start taking assets and grabbing everything. So I think I've seen a lot more recently. I'm interested to see how it is in Europe.
Yeah, Jan, I was really surprised when I first started working with you about the dawn raids. Can you talk a little bit about them?
Yeah, well, in Europe, there's all kinds of whistleblower regulations. Like if a company is involved in antitrust behavior and they voluntarily report it to the authorities, they actually get off the hook. So there has been some kind of a competition by companies reporting such irregularities and trying to do the race towards the regulator. And the company that filed it first then was off the hook, and you would seriously damage all of your competitors. We've also seen a lot of activity by the regulators where if they have some kind of indication of irregularities, they don't ask any questions, or they don't send you a formal or informal information request. They just do a dawn raid. And there's actually in Europe, there's a lot of law firms that do dawn raid practices with their clients to prepare them for these type of events. So there's a lot of dawn raids from antitrust investigations, but also more and more related to bribery investigations. And the European Commission has also been very enthusiastic, and a lot of local regulators also have done a lot of investigations related to environmental issues. And the way how things are in Europe, that, depending on who comes first, if you have a dawn raid from one of the national regulatory agencies, you can be pretty certain that you will also get dawn raids from the other ones in the other 20 countries and 26 countries. 27, I don't know, it changes kind of frequently these days. And
really?
And even at a certain moment, then also the European regulators come. And then if you have dealt with the antitrust regulators, it could very well be that suddenly you also have to deal with tax authorities. So we see that these cases, the antitrust cases, they have a very strong component of what we call serial litigation. where it starts with one case and then there's another case, and there's new data coming from all these different cases. So they're absolutely massive cases at the end of the day.
So what are they looking for, Jan?
What they're looking for, well, they're looking for who was involved, who else knew, who suffered. But very important, they're looking for, is there management involvement? And this is probably the same in the US, Kevin, isn't it? Because that's what they try to see, is there's like, was there some kind of guidance, or when did the board find out? Did they act? And that's the most threatening for a company. And that's why they will dig very, very deep for these types of answers. And I think that in the US it's probably the same, right?
Right, it is. It is. They're looking at figuring out what happened and trying to find out the story. And because, you know, sometimes it's adversarial or it's criminal, I mean, there's a lot of issues going on. They're going to want to come in and quickly do this before anything can be destroyed or lost, or you know, not that a company would ever destroy their records, but you know, they're going to want to come in quickly and find out what's going on. So, you know, the time is of the essence for these investigations.
Yeah,
I'm sure that's in the U.S. and the EU also. And so they're going to be coming in and seizing information and, you know, collecting the information, and you know, that's I think why they have the dawn raid. So you're not really expecting it, and they come surprise you and start copying and pulling computers and hard drives and whatnot. You know, so you need to indicate what is responsive, not responsive, quickly. You know, once they've done the seizure, you're going to have to go through and quickly respond with information. And the sooner you know what really happened, the sooner you can start to plan for a response to the investigation and then start to prepare for a strategy for how you'll respond and how you'll interact with the government regulatory body doing this investigation.
Yeah. One of the things we also see that in Europe, you actually get a copy of the data that they seized, and then you have like 10 days to indicate which part of that data is actually privileged, and then everything else is considered to be responsive or can be used by the regulatory agencies. Is that also the same in the US?
It is. The time frame may be a little different. It depends on what type of regulatory body, what type of department you're dealing with. But there is a short time frame overall, and you have to quickly, you know, you'll get a copy of what they pulled. You know, your counsel will get that, and your counsel and your team will have to quickly dig through it and try to figure out what's going on. So again, time is of the essence here.
Yeah. Okay. So how can we help with technology? Now, first of all, you know, traditionally we've been using search, keyword search, Boolean searches to find the most relevant documents. But as we've all seen, even the most brilliant queries either result in too many hits. It takes too much time to review them. We see that safe side, so they define very, very large queries, very reduce the risk that they would miss anything. The result is that there's lots of false positives, like hits that shouldn't have been hits, and then they all need to be reviewed, which will add tremendously to the cost of review. And that's really a problem with Boolean search. Either you get everything or you get nothing. And on top of that, it's really hard because a lot of people don't know exactly what they're looking for in an investigation. They don't know what keywords to use, how to spell them. There's been a lot of research where users think or they perceive that they have found 20 to 40% or 80% and actually found only 20 or 40% of all the relevant documents. And then highly skilled searchers or analysts are able to get to higher levels of recall, around 80%, but then they need to manage and understand a lot of complex query languages, and not everybody is capable of doing that. Now, AI and data science techniques can help, and I will tell you a little bit about those. So we're going to talk about text mining, clustering, topic modeling, machine learning, audio search, machine translation, but also very important, the automatic identification and redaction of sensitive and other personal data, which will become a huge issue under the global data protection regulations from the European Union. Now, first, let's start with the machine learning, how we see this and how we think that machine learning can help us in order to boost recall. If you look at the left side of the picture I'm showing now, you see a recall area from arrow from 0 to 100%, and this is what we're trying to aim. We're not trying to aim 100%, but we try to aim around 80%. 80% is typically the level at which best human beings perform. Some people say that everything over 80% is like subjective to interpretation, and therefore 80% is already very good. Now, what you see is that by using standard search, you can reach certain types of recall. If you use metadata search, it's getting a little bit better. If you use advanced search with fuzzy searches, regular expressions, and other types of searches, you get a little bit more. By using advanced processing to OCR bitmaps, use audio search, machine learning, you get a little bit better. But in order to find that last 20%, you need something which we call machine learning, and I'll show you how we do that. Now, with technology-assisted review or machine learning or predictive coding, whatever you want to call it, it's possible to find a much larger part of that whole area by using the machine learning. So users only need to understand some standard search, maybe some metadata search. They use that to find a couple of relevant documents. They don't have to think about coding very complex queries. And then by using that as an example, they can find more relevant documents by using the machine learning and reviewing small sets of data. Now, that's one thing where artificial intelligence can help. Now, the other part, which has always been a huge problem in eDiscovery, is what we call the eDiscovery data wave. In eDiscovery, you never really know in advance how much data you will have. You never know what type of data you'll have. As a result, you also never know what type of processing is required, what workflow and iterations you will have, and then the automation, the artificial intelligence, and the data science are very CPU intensive, and they require a lot of memory. So before you can start thinking using all these artificial intelligence techniques in eDiscovery for the handling of the regulatory request, you need to deal with this problem. Otherwise, your pipeline of data is probably going to be stuck somewhere along the line. So you need intelligence and extremely well-working load balancing and resource allocation to prevent bottlenecks and to deal effectively with what we call the data wave in eDiscovery. Now, where we have found a solution for this is in the Microsoft Azure environment. The Microsoft Azure environment has a number of benefits for eDiscovery. The most important is that Microsoft guarantees the jurisdiction where your data is. So this is very important for European Canadians, that their data is in like a certain jurisdiction where they know they have certain rights and certain protection, and it's not in a cloud where just every regulatory agency from the entire world can have access to that data without any kind of protection. So that's very important with Microsoft. The other thing which is very important with Microsoft is that it allows us to spin on and spin off machines as we require. So we can install an installation, in this case with 9 processing servers, and each server can be like a huge multi-core machine, and they're all virtual machines. You define the whole setup, and then you just spin down all the machines that you don't need, like the light blue ones in this picture, and then the dark blue ones are the ones that you use. And so you can use, like, in this case, maybe a couple of 100 gigabytes in processing, and then suddenly you have this new case. And in this new case, you need to process a terabyte or multiple terabytes over the weekend. Now, how are you going to do that? Now, in Azure, what we can do is we can spin on multiple machines without the need to reinstall the software, without the need to redeploy the data, and then we can use all this processing power to start processing the data and try to make the deadlines. Another thing which is very important in Azure, that they have the ability for high availability at very reasonable prices. So we can set up our software in different regions. One is active, the other one is standby. And then there's automatic geo-replication of the data. So if one region goes down for whatever reason, you can immediately switch over to the other region, and the lawyers who are doing the review don't have to sit waiting until the whole environment is back up again. And by doing this, we can guarantee 99.5% availability of the environment. So these are important foundations of the tools that you need to deal with regulatory agencies.
Right.
Now,
and
what I would like,
and
yep.
Jan, I just want to have a quick point here. I think that's very important. I agree with what you're saying. Having flexibility and stability in these investigations, especially with the international aspect of it, to where you may have to jump from a bunch of different countries, doing investigations in each subsidiary in each country, to be able to have technology, both the scalability aspect and then the geographic location, to be able to do different geographic locations and have them in country. I think that's very important. So
yeah, and then you can do the review in that particular country and only disclose what is relevant to another country. Okay, I can continue. You want to add anything more, Kevin?
Please do.
Okay, good. So this is all like I've told this story so far before, but I want to tell you a little bit more about what's different in handling regulatory requests in the antitrust regulations. And you probably all know this cartoon from the Sherman legislation. And I want to tell you a little story about what we've seen over the years. ZyLAB has a lot of regulatory agencies as clients, a lot of law enforcement. This is the market where we've always done a lot of business. And we've seen all kind of tricks that fraudsters used in order to hide what they were doing. You can say, well, if you want to hide what you're doing, you should just encrypt your data. You can do that, but for most regulators, that will work as a red flag, and it will immediately draw attention. Or for compliance officers in your organization, they see encryption, maybe they will knock on your door within 5 minutes. So this is not the preferred way how fraudsters work. But they use a lot of different tricks, and let me tell you a little bit about those tricks we've seen. But before we go there, first, one of the things that you have to deal with in a regulatory investigation is dealing with legal aspects. So you have to find privileged information, trying to automatically identify communication with lawyers. And this is something where search on I got an example here of searching for email domains, searching for different types of patterns can really be very helpful. And this is the first type of information you want to take out and set apart so it's not accidentally being disclosed to a regulator. Now, one of the things which has been gaining huge importance in the last couple of months is the GDPR. There's a lot of regulatory requests by US regulators in Europe, and under the GDPR, it's no longer allowed for these companies to disclose information to a party outside of or inside of Europe without protecting the privacy of the individuals that are mentioned in these emails. So remember, these are emails and data from people that may not have done anything. But then all of their personal information, addresses, maybe health information, all kind of other information is available. Now, these regulators would like to know who is who. So they will not accept any redacted data. But what they will accept is data which has been pseudonymized, where you actually replace a name of an individual with suspect 1, suspect 2, and then if the regulators have really good reasons to insist of knowing the actual name of that individual, they can indicate it later and then ask for you who is actually that individual suspect number 1. This is one of the things we can do automatically in our software. The next step is to start your investigation. You're going to get your data from the regulators. You're going to start the interviews. You start doing your own internal investigation. Typical things that we see that people do is that they start looking for names of suspects or partners in crimes or related companies. They're interested in finding one-on-one emails. They want to identify communication at odd times, like in the middle of the night. Suddenly 5 people start emailing. Or communication with a high level of, intensive level of emotions, like anger, cursing, and threats. Those are always very interesting. And then, of course, also finding hidden communication in normal communication channels, audio, other languages, identifying code words, Snapchats, or some cases where people don't even communicate at all, and you have to find different ways to work with that data. Now, first, what we allow users to do is to upload the data that they collected immediately and by themselves to our platform. So if you do your own internal investigation, you can collect PST, zip files, forensic images, just upload them, include the name of the custodian. They're uploaded very, very quickly. Then they're processed automatically. All the analysis is done automatically. We have some of the highest levels of automation, full processing, making every individual component searchable. And then you can start doing your review almost immediately. You don't have to wait until all the data is processed. You can already start doing this. And the idea is that we will allow our clients, law firms, internal counsel, to minimize the time between the moment that the data is identified and they can start their own investigation. And that's very essential to get at par with the regulator, because the regulator already had the data for a couple of days. They already know a couple of things. They may have get special information from whistleblowers. And so you have to get, at par with the regulator so you know what happened and so you can start answering them. You can also, with our software, directly correct data from the original location. So we can connect to a lot of different file formats and repositories. One of the most important, of course, is Office 365. Huge benefit if we run in Azure is that the Azure data center is always in a very close vicinity of the Office 365 data center, so you can collect with very high bandwidth. You can also collect from Exchange, file shares, SharePoint, and by collecting the data directly from the original location, you don't have to run around with disks and with other information. Now, in the background, our text mining will start analyzing the data. It will start semantically analyzing the data, detect semantic entities such as persons, companies, organizations, locations, amounts. And then we can immediately start visualizing all these relations, facts, and events, including sentiments, emotions, and even high-level concepts. And we display them in what we call facets. And you can immediately see these facets, like how many organizations were mentioned, which organizations were mentioned, which custodians, what were the sentiments, positive, negative, and you can. All of these graphs are clickable, and you will immediately go to the data, and then you can also look up the original documents. Now, at the same time, like I said, one of the things that is often important is that something happened between competitors, but you may not know which of your sales reps, for instance, had regular meetings with your competitors, if it's a price fixing issue, or if there's like maybe bribery or other irregularities. So one of the things we can do is for each of the custodians, we can analyze how often the names of their competitors were mentioned. And what you see in the graph here is that for a particular custodian, there was like 9 mentions of a certain company where there are like only 3 or 2 of all the other companies. So this could be a reason for you to investigate or take a little closer look. Like I said before, one of the interesting types of email are one-on-one communications, in particular to private email, and that's pretty hard to get it out. It's if you want to know all the email from one recipient to another, that's a totally trivial task. Well, we can do that, and we can visualize and count on those emails. One of the things that's very interesting is to analyze communication at all times. And this is where, by looking at patterns of communication, there's a lot of tools out there that can help you to find both local anomalies and global anomalies. And I got a great story here from a blog where this was explained on how this was done on a large amount of Twitter communication. It's possible to make a full semantic analysis of the content, location, persons, dates, finance, numbers, facilities, but also sentiments, problems, contact requests, and a lot of other information that will really help you to find, even if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. Now and I got a couple of other examples here where we show that. Now one of the things that this is all basic, so this is all done by our processing in the background. You have to set up the system once, certain templates, and then you will immediately have access to all of this information. It's all organized, and it's much easier to review this organized data than it is if you have to review a very large amount of unstructured data. But criminals and fraudsters also know this, so they come up with these ideas to hide their communication. And one of the first ideas that we saw many years already is they started hiding their communication as images, as attachments, an email, a calendar item, like very deep recursive structures in embedded objects, encrypted or in zipped files. So one of the things that we've developed at ZyLAB is that we take every electronic file apart. We take all the embedded graphics out of them, or if there's a spreadsheet in a Word file, or an email, and a calendar item with a zip file, we'll take it out. And we will, if it's not searchable, we will make it searchable. So we'll OCR it. And I got a great example here of an email with an attachment which could not be found if you would search for the phrase natural gas. What we did is we took it apart, we OCR'd the image, and then you can see that we actually found natural gas on the right side of the part. And you see immediately the entire document family where this email came from. We saw another very interesting behavior recently, where fraudsters decided to delete all their emails synchronously, and they all deleted a certain amount of email. Now, in our software, we can visualize these email trails and the conversations, and we can show which of the emails are collected and which are missing. In this case, we were able to identify a gap in the collected emails. We compared them among the suspects, and then we saw exactly the same period of email which was deleted. They could be restored from email, and that's actually where a lot of smoking guns were found. So we found by relevant information by actually not finding it. We've seen other folks where they said, well, everybody can search text, but let's stay away from text. So they started communicating by sending MP3s or audio files or video files, and then they hide these files in attachments or in zip files. At ZyLAB, we can automatically search, and we can detect these files. We can make them searchable, and then you can also do a keyword search on all of the embedded audio in both the audio files and the video files. So, fraudsters came up with another idea. They said, well, let's start communicating in, for instance, Chinese, because we know nobody in the company speaks Chinese or any kind of other language. So they used Google Translate to translate their communication in Chinese, and then they translated it back. And I got a great example here of such an email. Now, what we can do is we can automatically detect all these languages, automatically translate it, either by using on-premises or special licenses, but we can also use Google Translate or Bing Translate in any kind of language, and then there's no additional cost involved. And this really helps to find that type of communication. So we saw another idea, and you're probably all familiar with this if you have been involved in regulatory investigations. The criminals started using code words. So instead of, because, in like 10 years ago, criminals may have keyed in, well, can we bribe that guy, or how much money should we give him? But everybody knows emails being stored and archived, so they no longer do this. So we've seen text where people said, well, was he a player? Where a player actually meant that they would play a certain game. And then the next is, well, there were these patterns like, how much coffee did you offer him? Well, we gave him 15 coffee. Now if you don't know to search on coffee, you cannot find this. So we have this technology that allows us to search for semantic relations. So what you see here in the middle is that we have defined that an organization or person or company, which will be automatically recognized by the computer who are organizations or persons or companies, offers or buys or purchases or receives, and then we also look up all the linguistic inflections from another organization or person, something. Now, in these type of patterns, this picked up that there was like coffee offered, 15 coffee, 20 coffee, and by doing some frequency analysis, we were able to find that coffee actually was like kind of an anomaly, really strange occurrence. And then by looking at those emails, you can then find that this is how people use coffee for a code word for giving people some money. Then we saw another group of pretty smart fraudsters, and what they did is they said, well, we're going to commit this fraud with $300,000, but at the end of the day, they will probably search for $300,000. So let's not key in $300,000. Let's search for $300,001 or $300,001. And this was very interesting because we can recognize these amounts, and then we can analyze them and extract them and do a frequency analysis, as you can see here. And this was actually a real case. It was with a different number. The forensic investigators did all these investigations, and they focused on this number. And then we did this similar analysis, and we found that there was a huge amount of mentioning of the number they searched for, but then with like $1 or $2 and $3 at the end. And when they saw it, they really started sweating, and they were very, very concerned, and they had to redo a large part of the investigation because they never searched for those numbers. And this came immediately to the top of what happened when we analyzed it and presented to them. Okay, now if you have kids, you know that maybe you shouldn't use email. Maybe you should use something else like WhatsApp or Snapchat, which has the great feature that it automatically deletes everything after a certain time. So we've seen fraudsters using these type of communication channels. But then in this whole scheme, there's always one person who has a bad memory or wants to make sure that they cover themselves. And so what they do is they create screenshots of those type of communications. Now, what I got here is a great example of one of those screenshots, where somebody took a screenshot from some communication on WhatsApp. And then that screenshot was on a phone or on a computer. Well, we pick up the screenshot, we OCR it, and bingo, we find them. So then there were the really smart guys, and they said, well, you know what we do is we're not going to communicate at all. We're not going to use any electronic type of meeting. But then they agreed to meet on this particular place somewhere, and so they traveled there, and they had some lunch, and they discussed all their items. But then they made one small mistake. They both expensed their trip and the meal that they enjoyed. And then we were able to pick that up by extracting locations and date from expense reports, and then taking an intersection, and again compare and match, and that's how you can prove that they actually met or were at least at the same time at the same location. So these are all techniques that you can use in order to find people that try to hide what they're doing. Now, we've added a lot of other technology because I talked about how do you find if you don't know exactly what you're looking for. Well, that's where techniques from eDiscovery related to concept search and topic modeling, which is a automatic clustering technique from predictive coding and technology-assisted review, can help you. What you see here is a word wheel built on a number of news messages. We used a Reuters data set. And you can either see it as a tree list, or you can see it in this circle view. Everything is clickable. It's very dynamic. You should get a demo. It looks really great, and it's very, very good to use. Of course, by this time, you may know what you want to look for. And at that moment, we have one of the strongest or the strongest search engine available, where we can create huge queries. This is not like an open source search engine that everybody else is using. We've always developed our own queries. We can do very, very powerful fuzzy search, very long combined queries. We have quorum search. We can search on numbers, like numbers bigger or smaller. We can do all the combinations and also combine it by using structured information. Now, like I said, one of the problems is that not everybody knows how to search. Not everybody knows how to define a query. And then you never know exactly how much percent of the actual documents you found. This is where machine learning from technology-assisted review can be a great benefit, because by just finding a couple of numbers and teaching it to the computer can build a classifier and find similar documents. We see that this is a very effective process. Even after 40, 50, 60 documents, you already have very good classifiers. And by improving these classifiers, you can then continue to collect data until you kind of can prove that you found 70, 80, 90%. And then based on these measurements, like more or less exact how much of the data that was out there that you found. Here's an example of a simulation of that process. And we have an ebook on this on our website. You can download it, and this is where we explain how you can use machine learning not only to very effectively search, but also to boost your recall and to defensively measure what percentage of relevant documents you have found in a corpus. And that's very important, because at a certain moment you have to convince the regulator that you did your very, very best to find all the relevant documents. And if maybe some document pops up later, that you can tell them, well, listen, we went all the way up to 80, 85%, yes, we missed this document, but yeah, we didn't deliberately miss it because we used all this technology and technology didn't pick it up for whatever reason there is. And you can at least show that you acted sincerely and you really cooperated with the investigation. What we've seen is that machine learning is not only 10 to 20 times faster than manual review, it's also consistently 10 to 20% more accurate than the best humans, and it's fully defensible. So yeah, and using this technology in eDiscovery, everybody's doing it these days. But this exact same technology is also very useful for internal investigations and search problems. Now, this is not just it. At ZyLAB, we do a lot of research in data science and visualization. What I show you here are a couple of the things that we're working on and which will be in our platform very soon, where we do not only analyze like the who's and the where and the when and the what, but we also analyze what happened when. So we're going to analyze who did what or who expressed which emotions when. And then there's a lot of other great stuff that you can expect from us in the future. Now, in summary, what are the benefits of ZyLAB using it to deal with regulatory requests? Well, first of all, our clients can find out really fast what happened with fewer resources by automatically analyzing and organizing relevant data in these type of investigations by combining search, data science, and artificial intelligence technology. You can scale up your investigation by finding the real issues much faster. Now, the additional benefits is that once you start with your investigation, we organize, enrich, classify the data. So when we present it to the investigators, they can often find the answer from how we organize the data. So you can find more relevant data with less resources. Now, to law firms, there's a number of benefits, and yeah, so it's one platform that we have that can be used for not only answering regulatory requests, but also for eDiscovery, or if you're in the government, even for answering FOIA or public records requests. As a law firm, you don't need to involve any third parties. You keep control over the data. You can also bill the hours for project management and data science, which are much better fares than you can get for contract review. And very important, by doing it all yourself and uploading the data and almost immediately start reviewing, you can immediately start billing the hours, and you can immediately find out what really happened. Yeah, if you have good reasons to expand your review team, you can do it. Now, we've seen some of the law firms already starting to replace the traditional the lower part of the earnings pyramid with computers, which they call review robots, making them much more competitive, do more work with the current team. Also avoiding the situation where you have to pass on an opportunity because you don't have any capacity. And more and more important, there's because computers are not only more cost effective, they're also better. Like I said, consistently scientific research shows that computers are better. So there's really less risk of errors or missing out key documents, and less risk also for liability claims and higher insurance premiums. You want to add something here, Kevin?
No, the technology is very impressive. Going over some of the ways that people try to get around the system reminds me of an SCPA investigation I was involved with several years ago, and we covered about 50 countries. And each country, they would do some of those tricks. Each subsidiary, the employees that were bribing and just having engaged in illegal activities. Some would use pictures, some would use code words and whatnot. So having a tool that can help you quickly identify that is very important. And so Very nice.
Yep. Okay. Like I said, many of the international regulators use ZyLAB software for all of the obvious reasons. And they love it because with our technology, they can find more relevant documents faster with less resources. So, if you want to be at par with them, make sure you use similar technology. And like we said, don't bring a knife to a gunfight. If you would like to get a demo from our software, from the ZyLAB One platform, please let us know. You can go to our website, zylab.com, sign up for a demo. We have many very happy clients using our software for handling regulatory requests, both in the US and in Europe. We really try to help them, like this antitrust lawyer said. ZyLAB takes care of the process. We support the lawyer, so the lawyer can really use this advanced technology, and we provide them with comfort. We don't make it very hard. Our software is really easy to use, but we can also help the law firm by helping them with different commercial models. Now, like I said, we have a variety of ebooks. One ebook is about the topic of this webinar in much more detail. And we also have ebooks on technology-assisted review, on how you can implement artificial intelligence in a defensible way in your organization. So you don't have to worry that it's not being accepted by the regulators or by opposing counsel. And if you are interested, we do have another webinar here at ASETS on how we can use the same type of analytics, but then more for what we call a productivity revolution in eDiscovery. So we will use different examples of how we our clients can apply this technology for being more productive. And we have another webinar as well, October, which is way later in the year, where we're going to talk about even more details about how this can be done. Okay, that's it for me.
Thanks. Well, I'm sure people have a lot of questions about who and what companies were involved in some of these examples, but we will not ask those out loud. So. No. We will not tell them. We don't know. I don't know. I forgot. Yeah. Yeah. Well, Kevin, you've been involved in the defensive process that Sedona just released on TAR, and at least TAR was a part of it. Can you talk a little bit about regulators compared to litigators when it comes to accepting machine learning?
Right. That's a good question. So, there's definitely, here in the U.S., there's definitely been an acceptance, I think, of regulators being willing to use the technology or accept it. And I think it's that they realize that there's so much data to go through, and it helps them also. I think, many of the departments in the U.S. government utilize certain technologies that allow them to dig through, use predictive coding, use analytics, whatnot. So I've definitely seen an acceptance of it, and in fact, maybe even a preference. I don't know if it's preference yet, but they quickly need to get this data. The data that they pull on these raids, or they pull through an investigation, if it is a dawn raid, if you will, the data is just a big chunk. It's hard drives, it's phones, it's a bunch of external drives sitting around. It's all this data that they quickly need to go through themselves, as well as you on the defensive side with your client, you need to go through and quickly identify what's going on, try to get the picture, try to get the factual development, and to prepare your strategy. And having a technology that can help you do that is a necessity nowadays. It's truly needed on both sides.
Oh.
Yeah, and we see the same in Europe, that the law firms, the regulators, and the corporates, they're all using this type of technology to handle the large amounts of data.
Well, I guess it's not so much of an advantage anymore to pull up the truck and basically paper your opponent, now that the technology can sort through it all. Those large productions probably lend themselves to other threads in an investigation. So.
Yeah, but then, not everybody is using it. There's still people trying to do this the old-fashioned way.
It's amazing. That is amazing. Well, I want to be respectful of both of your time and our listeners' time. We're at the top of the hour. We'll have a communication go out with the link to the recording and the slides as well. And as Jan said, if you'd like a demo of the ZyLAB software, go to www.zylab.com and make your request. I want to thank you, Kevin, for coming on this webinar with your wealth of experience. And also, just a little shout out to your local. It's Dallas, yes, where you're organizing the ACEDS chapter.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
Yep. So expect to hear some things about that in the near future. And then I also want to thank our wonderful affiliate and my alma mater, ZyLAB, and Jan and Annalore. Thank you very much for not only sponsoring but being willing to show some of the secret sauce of the search techniques that you've honed over the years. We very, very much appreciate you being part of our ACEDS community. And thank all of you on the webinar for attending our summer school, so to speak, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.